The electricity shot through my body like liquid fire as I collapsed on our kitchen floor, my grandson's terrified screams fading as darkness swallowed me whole. One moment I was helping Tommy with his science project. The next, my own wife was standing over me with a taser, her face twisted with a rage I'd never seen in our 37 years of marriage. I woke up strapped to a gurney, the ambulance's fluorescent lights burning my eyes as a paramedic checked my vitals. My chest ached where the electrodes had punctured my skin, but nothing hurt more than the memory of Tommy's face. Those 8-year-old eyes wide with horror, watching his grandfather convulse on the floor like a dying animal. "Sir, can you tell me what happened?" the paramedic asked, his name tag reading Cameron, as he leaned in, speaking just above the siren's wail. Before I could form words through my cotton-dry mouth, I heard Patricia's voice from the front of the ambulance. "He came at me," she sobbed to someone, probably a police officer. "I've been afraid for months and I just grabbed the taser to defend myself. Thank God Tommy wasn't hurt." My blood ran cold. That wasn't what happened. Not even close. We disagreed about whether Tommy could have ice cream before dinner, such a trivial thing, and Patricia had simply snapped. But as I tried to sit up, to protest, the restraints bit into my wrists, and Cameron gently pressed me back down. "So your blood pressure is through the roof, sir. You need to stay calm," he said, but something in his eyes changed when he glanced toward Patricia, then back to me. He leaned closer, adjusting something near my head, and whispered, "The boy told me something different before your wife took him aside. Just focus on getting stable now." By the time we reached the hospital, the narrative was already spreading like wildfire. My phone buzzed repeatedly with messages from our daughter Melissa, each more accusatory than the last. "How could you? Mom told me everything. Stay away from Tommy until you get help." I stared at the screen, too stunned to cry, as nurses moved around me, treating me with the clinical caution reserved for dangerous patients. That evening, as I lay in the hospital bed with ECG leads monitoring my traumatized heart, a detective stood at the foot of my bed, taking notes as I tried to explain what actually happened, but I could see it in his eyes. He'd already spoken to Patricia, already formed his judgment. My wife of nearly 4 decades, the mother of my children, had painted me as an abuser in a single afternoon. "Mr. Davis, your wife has filed for an emergency restraining order," the detective said flatly. "Once you're discharged, you'll need to find alternative housing and surrender any firearms." "I don't own any guns," I said weakly, the irony crushing me. "Patricia's the one who attacked me." The detective's pen paused. "Sir, there are no marks on your wife, but you have quite a history of heart problems. Maybe you became confused during a cardiac episode. Mrs. Davis claims—" "My heart was fine until she tased me," I interrupted, my voice finally finding its strength. "And my grandson saw everything." "Children can be confused in high-stress situations," he replied with practiced ease. "Your grandson says he was in his room when it happened. Your wife says—" "She's lying," I whispered, more to myself than to him, as the full weight of my situation crashed down. In a matter of hours, I'd lost my home, my reputation and access to my grandson. Patricia had not only physically attacked me, but was now systematically destroying my life with calculated precision. As the detective left, Cameron the paramedic entered, ostensibly to check my IV. He adjusted the drip, then slipped me a small card with his personal number written on the back. "Medical records don't lie, sir," he said with deliberate emphasis. "And neither do 8-year-olds, at least not before they're coached. Call me when you're discharged." I clutched the card as if it were a life preserver in the open sea. In the span of one afternoon, my wife had revealed herself as a stranger. My family had abandoned me, and my only ally was a paramedic I'd met while unconscious on my own kitchen floor. Night fell as I stared at the ceiling, too numb even for tears. Outside my window, the city continued its normal rhythm, oblivious to how my world had just been shattered by 50,000 volts and a wife I thought I knew. 3 weeks after being tased in my own kitchen, I stood before a small bathroom mirror in the studio apartment I'd hastily rented across town. The circular burn marks on my chest had faded to dull red targets, physical reminders of betrayal that matched the deadness in my eyes. I buttoned my shirt methodically, preparing for my first court appearance to contest Patricia's restraining order. Tommy's face haunted me daily. I hadn't seen my grandson since that afternoon. Melissa had tersely informed me that he was confused and scared, and needed time away from the situation. The situation. That's what my life had become. a problem to be contained. My phone vibrated on the counter with a message from Cameron, the paramedic who'd slipped me his card that night in the hospital. "Today's the hearing, right? Remember what we discussed. Stay calm, stick to facts. The medical report backs your version. I'll be there." His words brought me back to our meeting at a quiet diner last week, where he'd shown me his copy of the ambulance report. "Your injuries were inconsistent with someone having a cardiac episode and falling," he'd explained, "and I documented that your grandson initially told me Grandma hurt Grandpa with the zappy thing before she whisked him away." Another text arrived, this time from my neighbor of 15 years. "Sorry to bother you, but could you ask Patricia when she's moving the garbage cans? They've been at the curb since Tuesday." Not a word about my well-being, just garbage cans. The world had simply accepted Patricia's version without question. As I drove to the courthouse, a local radio host discussed domestic violence statistics. "Men are perpetrators in over 80% of cases," the expert explained confidently. I gripped the steering wheel tighter, wondering if they'd ever consider the silent men with burn marks on their chests, the ones too ashamed or too disbelieved to speak up. Patricia was already inside the courtroom, surrounded by a protective circle, including our church pastor. She wore a modest blue dress I'd never seen before, her hair in a simple bun that emphasized her carefully crafted, vulnerable appearance. When our eyes met briefly, I searched for even a flicker of the woman I'd shared my life with, but found only a cold, rehearsed fear she quickly displayed for her supporters. The proceedings felt surreal, as if I were watching someone else's life unravel. Patricia's attorney painted a picture of a long-suffering wife who'd finally been forced to defend herself, presenting evidence of my supposed aggression, text messages taken out of context, statements from friends about my concerning behavior. When my turn came, I recounted the events with measured dignity, describing the trivial disagreement about ice cream that had somehow led to Patricia pulling the taser from her purse. My attorney presented the medical report, highlighting the twin puncture wounds consistent with taser prongs. "And why would your wife have a taser in her purse at home?" the judge asked skeptically. "I didn't know she had one until it was used on me," I answered honestly. Patricia's attorney pounced. "Isn't it convenient that you claim to have no knowledge of a defensive weapon your wife felt necessary to carry in her own home?" The courtroom door opened, and Cameron slipped in, nodding slightly toward me. His presence steadied me, a reminder that at least one person had seen through the carefully constructed narrative. The judge maintained the temporary restraining order, scheduling another hearing in 30 days. "Until then, Mr. Davis, you are to remain at least 500 feet from your former residence and have no contact with your wife or grandson, except through court-approved channels." As we filed out, I overheard Patricia's friend whisper, "I always knew there was something off about him." The casual cruelty stung worse than the taser had. Outside, I stood alone on the courthouse steps, watching Patricia leave surrounded by her supporters. Cameron approached cautiously. "It's just the first round," he said quietly. "I've reached out to the Child Protective Services caseworker assigned to interview Tommy. She's thorough, doesn't rush to judgment." "Why are you helping me?" I asked, the question that had been haunting me for weeks. Cameron's eyes revealed a personal understanding. "My father went through something similar. Nobody believed him either." He handed me a business card. "This is Sarah Jacobs, a social worker who specializes in family dynamics and false accusations. She can help you navigate this." As he walked away, my phone buzzed with a text from Melissa. "Tommy's been having nightmares. He's asking about you, but Mom says it's not a good idea right now." I stared at the screen, tears blurring my vision. My grandson was asking for me, which meant he hadn't completely bought into whatever story Patricia was spinning. It was a tiny flame of hope in the darkness. In my car, I finally did something I'd been too shocked to do before. I pulled out my phone and began documenting everything. Dates, times, inconsistencies in Patricia's story, the medical reports, Cameron's observations. Not out of vengeance, but because Tommy deserved to know the truth someday. If my wife tased me in front of my grandson, then told everyone I attacked her, I wouldn't spend the rest of my life being the villain in a story I never wrote. If my story touched you, I would be very happy if you liked this video, subscribed to the channel and turned on notifications. 6 weeks after the incident, I sat across from Sarah Jacobs in her modest office. The social worker Cameron had recommended studied my documentation with practiced calm, occasionally making notes. The wall behind her desk displayed her credentials alongside children's artwork, reminders of the families she'd helped navigate turbulent waters. "Mr. Davis, your case presents some concerning patterns," she said finally, removing her reading glasses. "The timing of your wife's sudden claim about feeling threatened, the immediate weaponization of your grandson in the narrative, the rapid social isolation, these are textbook alienation tactics." Her professional validation of what I'd been experiencing sent a wave of relief through me so powerful, my hands trembled. For weeks I'd questioned my own sanity, wondering if perhaps I had somehow provoked Patricia without realizing it. "Your medical records clearly document taser wounds," Sarah continued, "yet your wife maintains she acted in self-defense against an attack that left her completely uninjured." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "Have there been previous incidents where Patricia fabricated or exaggerated situations?" The question unlocked a flood of memories I'd suppressed over our decades together. Small lies to friends about why we missed events, dramatic retellings of minor disagreements where I'd somehow become the villain. Her convenient migraines whenever family gatherings didn't center around her. "I never saw it as a pattern until now," I admitted, the realization settling heavily on my shoulders. "I always made excuses for her." Sarah nodded without judgment. "That's extremely common. We minimize because facing the alternative is too painful." As we developed a strategy for the upcoming court date, my phone lit up with a text from Melissa. "Tommy has a baseball game Saturday. He keeps asking if you're coming." My heart leaped, then immediately crashed. The restraining order meant I couldn't attend. "May I?" Sarah asked, gesturing to the message. After reading it, she offered a measured smile. "This is actually encouraging. Your daughter is reaching out, even if cautiously. It suggests she may have doubts about her mother's version." Later that afternoon, I received an unexpected call from Tommy's baseball coach, Dave, whom I'd known for years through community events. "Robert, I've known you and Tommy too long to believe what I'm hearing," he said after an awkward greeting. "The boy misses you. He told me his grandma hurt you, not the other way around." I didn't know what to say to him. My throat tightened. "What did you tell him?" "That sometimes grown-ups have complicated problems, but that his grandpa loves him very much." Dave paused. "Patricia's been acting strange at practices, hovering, interrupting when Tommy talks to other parents. It doesn't add up." After thanking Dave for his call, I sat in my apartment staring at the family photo I kept on my nightstand. The 3 generations of us at Tommy's 7th birthday last year. Patricia's smile now seemed performative rather than genuine, a realization that sent a chill through me. I was loading my laundry at the complex's shared facility when my phone rang again. It was Cameron. "Just checking in. The CPS worker interviewed Tommy yesterday," he informed me. "She noted inconsistencies between his account and Patricia's, but Patricia interrupted the interview repeatedly." "How do you know all this?" I asked. "The investigator is my sister's colleague. She doesn't share details, but wanted me to know they're taking this seriously." A flicker of hope strengthened inside me, but was quickly doused when I returned to my apartment and found an envelope that had been slipped under my door. Inside was a formal letter from Tommy's school removing me from the approved pickup list, citing the restraining order. The final line cut deepest. "This decision follows reports of concerning statements made by the student about family situations." What statements had Tommy made? What was Patricia telling him about me? That night I couldn't sleep. At 2 a.m., I found myself recording a video message for Tommy on my phone, showing him I was okay, reminding him of our science projects and baseball practices. I told him I missed him and loved him, without a single negative word about his grandmother. I didn't send it. Couldn't send it due to the restraining order, but creating it eased something inside me. The next morning I received another text from Melissa. "Tommy's therapist asked for pictures of you two together. Is that okay?" I responded immediately. "Of course, would the therapist like to speak with me directly?" 3 dots appeared and disappeared several times before her response came, "Mom would be upset, but I'll ask the therapist." Those simple words, "Mom would be upset," revealed volumes about the dynamic in our family. For decades, we had all organized our lives around not upsetting Patricia. Only now could I see how toxic that pattern had been. Later that day, Sarah called with news. "The court has appointed a guardian ad litem for Tommy, an advocate who represents only his interests. This is good, Robert. It means the judge has concerns about the situation." As I hung up, I felt the faintest stirring of what might be justice taking shape. The walls Patricia had built around Tommy were showing their first small cracks. I placed my hand over the fading taser marks on my chest, feeling my steady heartbeat beneath them. The physical wounds were healing. Whether the deeper ones ever would depended on what happened next. The courthouse hallway felt colder than I remembered as I waited for the hearing to begin. 2 months had passed since Patricia had tased me, and today the court would review the guardian ad litem's report on Tommy's well-being. Sarah sat beside me, reviewing documents while my attorney checked his watch repeatedly. "Remember," Sarah murmured, "whatever happens today, stay composed. This is about Tommy, not vindication." I nodded, though the distinction felt academic. In my mind, protecting Tommy and clearing my name had become inseparable goals. The district attorney had already declined to file assault charges against Patricia, citing insufficient evidence despite the medical documentation of my injuries. Cameron appeared at the end of the hallway, walking towards us with purpose. Unlike previous encounters, he wasn't alone. Beside him walked a sharp-featured woman in her 50s, whom I recognized from photos as his sister, Rebecca, the senior CPS investigator. "Mr. Davis," Rebecca greeted me formally, "I wanted to inform you personally that I'll be testifying today." Her professional demeanor softened slightly. Tommy's statements in our latest interview were illuminating. Before I could ask what she meant, the courtroom doors opened. Inside, Patricia sat with her attorney and, unexpectedly, Melissa. My daughter avoided my gaze as I entered, but I noticed her hands twisting anxiously in her lap, a childhood habit that emerged when she was conflicted. The judge called the room to order, and the guardian ad litem, a stern-looking woman named Mrs. Winters, presented her findings first. Her carefully measured words nonetheless painted a disturbing picture. "Your Honor, after multiple interviews with the minor child and both maternal grandparents, I find significant concerns regarding the child's emotional state. Tommy exhibits signs of psychological distress when discussing the incident, particularly when his grandmother is present." Patricia shifted uncomfortably as Mrs. Winters continued. "Most concerning is evidence of coaching. When interviewed alone, Tommy consistently states, 'Grandma hurt Grandpa with the zappy thing because he wouldn't let me have ice cream.' When his grandmother enters the room, his account changes dramatically." The judge interrupted. "Mrs. Winters, are you suggesting the child has been influenced to change his testimony?" "I am not merely suggesting it, Your Honor. I documented 5 separate interviews where this pattern occurred. Furthermore, the child reported being told repeatedly that Grandpa is sick and dangerous, a characterization contradicted by all third-party observations of Mr. Davis's interactions with his grandson." Patricia's attorney objected, claiming Tommy was simply confused and trying to please both grandparents, but the judge allowed Rebecca to testify next. With clinical precision, she described Tommy's drawings during therapy. Images of a stick figure lying on the ground, while another figure held what he called the zappy stick. As Rebecca spoke, I noticed Melissa's expression change, her eyes darting between her mother and me. The careful facade Patricia had constructed was crumbling, piece by piece. Then came the moment that silenced the courtroom. Rebecca presented a recording of Tommy's most recent interview, conducted with both his therapist and the guardian present. His small voice filled the room. "Grandma told me to say Grandpa was mad, but he wasn't mad. He was just saying I should eat dinner before ice cream. Then Grandma got her zappy thing from her purse and made Grandpa fall down. It was scary. Then she told me Grandpa had a heart attack, but I saw the zappy thing. I'm not supposed to talk about the zappy thing or Grandma gets really mad." Patricia's face drained of color. Her attorney quickly requested a recess, which the judge denied. Cameron testified next, presenting the original medical report alongside photographs of my injuries taken in the ambulance. "These wounds are consistent with taser prongs, not with falling during a cardiac event as Mrs. Davis claimed," he stated firmly. "Additionally, I documented the grandson's initial statement before he was separated from me by Mrs. Davis. As the evidence mounted, I maintained the dignified silence Sarah had counseled, though inside, a storm of emotions threatened to overwhelm me. This wasn't just about clearing my name anymore. It was about breaking a cycle of manipulation that was harming Tommy. The judge called a brief recess, during which Melissa approached me hesitantly, her eyes red-rimmed. "Dad, she began, then faltered. "Tommy's been having terrible nightmares. He finally told me last week what he saw. Why didn't you tell me right away what Mom did?" "Would you have believed me?" I asked softly, without accusation. Her silence was answer enough. When court resumed, the judge delivered her ruling. The restraining order against me was dissolved immediately. More significantly, she ordered a temporary modification of Tommy's custody arrangement, granting me supervised visitation while restricting Patricia's access pending a comprehensive psychological evaluation. The court finds credible evidence that Mrs. Davis not only assaulted Mr. Davis without provocation, but has engaged in a systematic campaign to alienate the child from his grandfather using methods harmful to the child's psychological well-being, the judge stated firmly. Patricia's composed facade finally cracked. "He's trying to turn everyone against me," she cried out. "He's always been manipulative. You just can't see it." The outburst only confirmed what the evidence had already revealed. As the bailiff escorted her from the courtroom, I felt no satisfaction, only a profound sadness for the decades spent with someone capable of such deliberate cruelty. Outside the courthouse, Melissa approached again, this time with determination in her stride. "Tommy has baseball practice tomorrow," she said quietly. "He'd really like his grandpa to be there." As she walked away, I pressed my hand against my chest where the taser marks had finally faded to faint pink circles, scars that would always remain, visible only to me. Like the deeper wounds Patricia had inflicted, they would never completely disappear, but perhaps like Tommy's nightmares, they would eventually lose their power. Saturday morning sunlight washed over the baseball field as I sat in the bleachers, apart from the whispering parents. Their uncertainty didn't matter. I was here for Tommy. When he spotted me from the dugout, his face transformed from solemn to radiant. He waved enthusiastically, nearly dropping his glove. "Grandpa's watching," he announced to his teammates, pride filling his voice. 3 months since the court ruling cleared my name, yet this was just our 4th supervised visit. Melissa joined me on the bench, a small gap between us, our relationship still healing. "The therapist says Tommy's doing better," she offered. "The nightmares have almost stopped." "And you?" I asked gently. She sighed. "I keep replaying all the times Mom twisted the truth and how easily I believed her. I should have questioned more." "We all should have," I interrupted softly. "Your mother spent decades perfecting her methods. You can't blame yourself." The psychological evaluation had revealed Patricia's pattern of manipulation, her need for control, her calculated deception when threatened. The diagnosis explained, but didn't excuse the damage. Tommy kept glancing over as he played second base, seeking my approval. I gave him a thumbs up. "The guardian ad litem called," Melissa mentioned. "Mom's requesting expanded visitation." I kept my expression measured. "What do you think about that?" I told them I want Tommy's therapist to make the recommendation. She looked directly at me. "I'm not making the same mistake twice, Dad. No more taking someone's word just because they're family." Those words represented a fundamental shift, a new foundation built on truth rather than manipulation. When Tommy successfully fielded a ground ball, his victorious glance carried the same message. Truth matters. After the game, Tommy sat beside me with an ice cream cone, our resumed tradition. "Grandpa, are you still sad about what Grandma did?" he asked with childlike directness. "Sometimes," I admitted, "but mostly I'm happy we can be together again, watching baseball and eating ice cream." He nodded seriously. "My therapist says Grandma has problems in her brain that make her do bad things, but it's not my fault or your fault. Your therapist is very smart. She says I was brave for telling the truth even when it was scary." His shoulders straightened with pride. "You were incredibly brave," I affirmed. "Standing up for truth is one of the hardest things." Walking back, Tommy slipped his sticky hand into mine. "I knew you'd never hurt Grandma. You don't even squish spiders, you put them outside in cups." That observation, so precise in its childlike wisdom, brought a lump to my throat. While adults were entangled in legal proceedings, Tommy had judged character through consistent patterns of behavior. 1 month later, the judge issued her permanent ruling. Patricia received limited, supervised visitation contingent upon therapy. Melissa retained primary custody, with substantial visitation time granted to me. Patricia sat across the courtroom, diminished. I felt no satisfaction, only relief that the deception had ended. Outside, Cameron approached. "Heard the good news. Glad things worked out." "Thank you isn't enough," I told him. "If you hadn't noticed those inconsistencies, you know what made me suspicious?" he replied. "When I arrived, your grandson said one thing. After 5 minutes with your wife, his story completely changed. Children don't do that unless coached. That evening, helping Tommy with science homework in my new home near Melissa's, I watched him concentrate on drawing the solar system. "You know what, Grandpa?" he said suddenly. "I'm glad you're back." The simple statement contained universes. I realized that surviving Patricia's betrayal had given Tommy something precious, the living example of resilience, of dignity maintained through injustice, and the enduring power of quiet truth against calculated lies. If my story touched you, I would be very happy if you liked this video, subscribed to the channel, and turned on notifications.